I call to order this regular meeting of the Monument Town Council, Monday, September 16th, 2024. Please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Simpson, will you take roll, please?
Here.
Here.
Her mic isn't on.
Councilmember Abbott.
Here.
Councilmember Spirit.
Here.
Mayor LaKai.
Here.
Councilmember Kimball.
Here.
And Councilmember.
I can hear everybody else very clearly. She sounds like faint as a ghost.
Councilmember Romanello.
I'm here.
Thank you.
Okay, any disclosures of conflicts of interest?
Mr. Mayor, our office has received no disclosures of conflicts of interest.
Easy for
I
you
have
to
a struggle getting that out.
All right, okay, before us, we have an agenda and a consent agenda. Any modifications to the agenda? If not, I will look for a motion.
I move to accept the consent agenda.
And
In the regular
agenda.
agenda.
And the I'll get
What's
there.
going on?
And yeah, I don't know. I can't figure out. And the regular agenda.
I'll second.
All right, we're accepting the agenda and the consent agenda, unmodified.
Correct.
Ms. Simpson.
Mayor Pro Tem King.
Yes.
Councilmember Kimball.
Yes.
Mayor LaKai.
Yes.
Councilmember Fiorito.
Here. Yes, sorry. Wow.
Councilmember Abbott.
Here, yes.
That's it. Start over.
Councilmember Chronic.
Yes.
And Councilmember Romanello.
Yes.
Councilmember Romanelli, you're missing out. I think we turned the air conditioner down too low.
That means they'll get hot in a minute.
Okay, next up is oath of office. Chief Reagan.
Thank you. Ready? All right, I have Sergeant LeVoit here that I'd like to swear in front of you. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Jonathan LeVoit,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and bear
that I will support and bear
true faith and allegiance
true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution and laws
to the Constitution and laws
of the United States of America
of the United States of America,
and the state of Colorado,
the state of Colorado,
and to the ordinances of the town of Monument,
and to the ordinance of the town of Monument,
and that I will defend and protect the lives,
that I will defend and protect the lives,
safety, and property
safety, and property
of the people of Monument,
of the people of Monument,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
the duties of the office of sergeant
the duties of the office of sergeant
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you guys so much for that. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Chief. Big thanks, obviously, to my family and friends there in the back, showing up for me, supporting me. Some of my fellow officers that are here tonight, I really appreciate you as well. That also means very much to me, and I very much will try to do exactly what that says. I will serve the people of Monument as best of my ability, no matter the circumstances. Thank you guys for your time.
Okay. Always good to see a new officer coming on board. Next up, we have, I'm going to screw up both of these names.
Ali Such. Just you, for Creek Week. I didn't want to do that other name. Yes, you should. Yes, please.
Great. I'm just handing these out. Good evening. Is this thing on? Yes, we're good. Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council and members of the public. My name's Ali Shook. I'm the Executive Director of the Fountain Creek Watershed District, and we work to enhance the health of Fountain Creek, serving a huge area with 9 member governments from Palmer Lake all the way down to Pueblo. To date, we've completed $35 million in creek restoration projects and have a robust suite of engaging community programming. Speaking of which, I'm excited to be here tonight to announce our 11th annual Creek Week cleanup. This is the largest cleanup in the state of Colorado. It's going to take place this year from September 28th to October 6th. We currently have nearly 30 different public events happening, with an additional 25 private events. Over the past decade, Creek Week has mobilized over 25,000 volunteers to remove 150 tons of trash. That's equivalent to the weight of the Statue of Liberty. Just imagine what would happen if we didn't have Creek Week. The district supports the Creek Crews by providing cleanup supplies, including bags, gloves, grabbers, buckets, and some fun swag. You've all received a little bag that represents some of those goodies today. Most cleanups only take place a couple hours, but they really make a huge difference. We're incredibly grateful to the town of Monument for support over the last 10 years. In fact, in our early days, Miss Madeline served on our steering committee, and back then we only had about 625 volunteers, and now we're engaging over 2,000 during the 9-day time frame. So I know it remains close to her heart because you've got a cleanup scheduled on Saturday, October 5th up here in Monument. All you have to do is email events@tomgov.org for more information and to register. And if that date doesn't work for you, we like to say 9 days, no excuses. You're all given a little card, a reminder card. So take a look on our website, and thank you for doing your part at the top of the watershed, where it's not only benefiting you, but everyone else downstream. I want to also recognize Councilman Romanello for serving on our district board for the past couple of years, not only representing Monument, but our other small government members of Palmer Lake, Green Mountain Falls, and Manitou Springs. Happy to answer any questions you may have, and thank you for considering the Creek Week proclamation this year.
Thank you. Any questions? No? Well, then we'll see. It's on the 5th up here, right? I'll see you all on the 5th. Cool.
Roll up your sleeves and make it happen.
Unless it's cold out, then I'm going to leave my sleeves down.
You bundle up, we dress for the weather, but we usually have great weather for Creek Week.
Yeah.
I can say that.
All right. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank God.
you.
Is there a proclamation that is getting read? Normally, I thought we read one. Oh, yeah, we do need to read it. Okay, who would like to read the proclamation? Marco?
Thanks for volunteering, Marco.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Whereas. Oh, you don't have a copy?
Oh, am I reading? Okay,
Here.
on the screen, same thing.
Yep,
All right. Proclamation recognizing Creek Week 2024. Whereas we are fortunate to have extensive and diverse natural resources, and whereas the Fountain Creek watershed is a unique and important asset to the residents of and visitors of El Paso County and the Pikes Peak region, and whereas the Fountain Creek Watershed District is a proud partner and collaborator with its member governments, and whereas the Fountain Creek Watershed District is celebrating the 11th annual Creek Week cleanup, which offers volunteers the opportunity to protect, steward, and maintain the Fountain Creek watershed. And whereas Creek Week is a litter cleanup, education, and restoration effort throughout the watershed set for September 28th through October 6th, 2024, the largest cleanup event in the state of Colorado. And whereas nearly 20,000 volunteers have removed over 135 tons of trash during Creek Week over the past 10 years during this impactful program. And whereas Creek Week litter removal and restoration activities will continue reducing pollution in our creeks and connecting waterways, managing flooding, providing a safer drinking water supply, and enhancing wildlife habitat and property values. Now, therefore, the Town Council of the Town of Monument hereby proclaims September 28 to October 6, 2024 as the 11th Annual Creek Week in Monument and invite our citizens to help protect, restore, and maintain our waterways by participating in the many activities, programs, and events. Proclaimed the 16th day of September 2024.
Thank you. All right, next up, we have a presentation by Steve Murray on the proposed 2025 budget. Mr. Murray.
Get it pulled up and shared here. Okay, good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight we'll be discussing the proposed 2025 budget, and we'll dive straight into the assumptions. So for the assumptions, we're keeping sales tax flat to 2023 actuals. CIRSA PNC has a 20% increase. This is kept constant to the last presentation as we are working with some additional items and getting real numbers for the true budget. Same with the mill levy. This is kept at the 5 mills and is under calculation as we receive the valuation from El Paso County. Another thing to touch on is the 20% increase of fuel, electricity, and gas, the utilities that you see. That is held over 23 actuals. For the general fund, we have made some adjustments from the prior slide or prior presentation. You see that the revenue over expenditures is a deficit of 2.1 million, a beginning balance of 5.5 million, and we're getting an additional 150,000 from the police department unreserved balance. With a TABOR of 3% of almost $400,000, an ARPA reserve of 2 million, this leaves us with an unreserved fund balance in the general fund of $1.1 million or a 8.43% reserve. And this is including all the law enforcement expenses. As we dive into a more granular approach, we have public works, which is comprised of streets, facilities, fleet, and parks, with a budgeted 20 people for FTEs in 2025. We're expecting a $4.5 million expenditure for those 4 departments. Additionally, facilities houses all the utilities for the general fund. For administration, this is comprised of town council, clerk, finance, human resources, information technology, and admin. We see a total expenditure of $4 million and a 16 head count for FTEs. Court is only 180,000 for total expenditures and 2 FTEs. Planning, we see 5 FTEs and a budget of expenditures of 1.16 million. As we look at law enforcement, there's a couple things to note here. We see that they have their own utilities, even though they're part of general fund. This is due to the allocation being comprised before the 2F and police department split. In 2026 budget, you'll see all of these expenses fall under the facilities. And additionally, we have 42 police officers budgeted for 2025, but only 33 of those fall under the general fund. This gives us a total expenditure of $4 million and leads us straight into our special funds. Here we have the 2F police. We see that revenue over expenditures gives us a deficit of 55,000, but we have a beginning balance of almost 700,000. With 475,000 of this being earmarked for 2024 expenses, we have that 150,000 that is being moved to the general fund to help with the unreserved balance there. And we see at the end of 25, we have a 0 unreserved fund balance in the 2F fund. And this is due to compliance with the ordinance and making sure that we allocate and spend all of the tax money properly. As we look at the water fund, we can see that we have that $2.2 million deficit from the revenues over the expenditures and a beginning balance of 5.6 million. After further investigation of the prior $1.1 million that was being held in reserve, we have identified that only 750,000 of that needs to be held in reserve. The other 300,000 was interest from that account holding for the monument water storage. So we can allocate that back to the water department. This gives us an unreserved fund balance ending 2025 of $2.6 million. And that leads us straight into the 2A Water Department, which has encompassed the $3 million water tank, which is what you see the revenue over expenditures, giving us that deficit of 3.3 million and a beginning balance of that 7.5 million. We still have an unreserved fund balance of 4.2 million. And additionally, give me 1 second. Apologies. Oh, and we'll jump straight into capital projects fund. For revenue over expenditures here, we see that negative 6.4 million with a beginning balance of 2.1 million or 2.2 million, excuse me. We have an unreserved fund balance of a deficit of 4.2 million. And this is due to an increase of the curb and gutter and the concrete and asphalt from a 300,000 to a 350,000 to a $500,000 budget each, and including a $300,000 public work design for the public work building. And then please note that this includes the $9 million expense for the Jackson Creek Parkway.
Can you hang on 1 second? If you were to subtract the 9 million, what is the unreserved funds at the end of 2025?
If we took out the $9 million there,
Yeah,
off the top of my head, it'd be roughly 5 million.
so you'd be in the plus 5
Yes.
million.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Thank you. Was that what you were gonna?
No,
Oh, go ahead.
the Jackson Creek, the 9 million. The 9 million for the Jackson Creek Parkway. Do we have a design have we paid the design or a company to come assess?
Last we were in the 90 percentile, wasn't that was what we reported?
Yeah, that's close to where we're at. So we've been paying for design, and we've had some grants for that as well.
Okay, and it's still 9 million, or it hasn't increased at all, or that's what we're
That's what we're
calculating.
guessing. Yeah,
Okay.
so once we have the design complete and we can put it out to bid, we'll have a better understanding of exactly what it would be, but our best guess is around $9 million.
And how much presently do we have saved for the Jackson Creek Parkway?
There isn't really any earmarked funds for Jackson Creek Parkway.
So we have to figure out how to generate $9
Correct.
million.
It would come out of this capital projects fund is where it would come from.
We also have the 10 million in investments that we'd have to discuss at some point to spend that, and it would tap out our investment money, but it would pay for the road.
Yeah. And then what, okay, the other question will come up here
Okay,
at the end.
continue, please.
So we'll look into the smaller funds here with community development, traffic impact fee, and storm drainage. And those have an unreserved fund balance of a negative 85,000, negative 21,000, and a negative 40,000 respectively. And the last two small funds are the park fee funds and the conservation trust fund. And respectively, those have a negative 212,000 and a 15,000 positive. Lastly, we'll look at the sales tax. And while we are keeping our budget to constant with 23 sales tax actuals, we have seen an increase of 6% growth from 2023. However, we want to see more stats and statistics from the Department of Revenue until we predict out the rest of 2024. These are the projects for the general fund, and similar to last presentation, we're looking for the council's advice and priorities on which projects that can fit in this sheet or which ones can get moved to 2026. And as you'll notice, I plugged in a $42,000 mark for the council member pay. I understand that that's high because all council members won't be getting paid in 2025, but I wanted to give a more realistic of what that number would be rather than that 5,000 of last time. And then we have a similar page for special fund. Same thing, we're looking for the council's advice on which projects can get moved, which ones are, in your eyes, the top of the priority list. And then we have our supplemental projects, and these are wish list items from other directors that we would like to ask you what your thoughts are on these and how we can work them into the budget either this year or in future years. And then we'll move to any questions.
Yeah, a bunch.
Okay, any questions?
Yeah, because we're flying through this and we're not, I kind of want to take a step back and tear some of this apart. Can we go to the, yeah, we'll start here. Is that, so the record software and the consult records, I thought that that was actually something that was needed to, that was higher up on the list of things.
Right, so we've been working on this project. Part of this money is in 2024 funds, but we might still need some additional money in 2025. We're not entirely sure it would be this amount, but we just want to have it in there in case we do need to, in case everything doesn't get worked through in 2024.
Okay. And then,
Is the vendors been identified for the records, the consultant records, so those both?
So for the consultant, we've been working with, I cannot remember her name, but we've been working with her for a couple of years, and then the software has not yet been decided yet.
And the camera system vendor has been selected already?
To my knowledge, no, this is just kind of an
Swag.
early look at what we could be looking at. I believe this system is something that integrates with what we already have. So that's probably one of the reasons they looked at this one.
okay. So something else, what I would personally, what I would like to know, and I'm sure some of the other members up here would like to know too, is because we're talking about all these supplemental projects, and then on page 17, the actual spend funds for projects. But what I'm not hearing, I mean, I know that you want our input, but what I would like to hear personally is on some of these, what is, if it's not funded, what's the cause and effect? If it doesn't get funded, and I'm not looking for worst case scenario, I'm just asking like, because I know, like for an example, what I'm wondering is on the some of the things I know, like last time we were talking about vehicles and stuff, and is there a possibility instead of purchasing the vehicle, is there a possibility of leasing it? And I know like Public Works was asking for certain like specialized vehicles that they needed to do work, and what are they doing? How are they getting the job done now without having that vehicle? Or are they renting that vehicle? Or is it a possibility to lease the vehicle instead? How often is the vehicle going to be used or needed? That kind of thing.
Sharing agreement.
Well, yeah,
Yeah, I haven't got to that one yet, but yeah. And is there possibility to do like sharing agreements with whether it's Triview, Denala, Palmer Lake? You know, have we looked at that? Have we looked at those potential resources as well?
I would like to know if these are in order of importance also. I mean, obviously Jackson Creek Parkway is at the top, but if you look down each of these sections under the projects and the special funds, are these in order of importance, or are they they don't appear to be alphabetical? So how are these laid out?
So it just sort of depends on the fund, but we can give you a priority list of them. Some of them are things that we typically do, but we wanted to include kind of large purchase items. So we usually purchase this amount of flowers and landscaping out of the Conservation Trust Fund. We usually replace this many trees every year or plant new trees. So sometimes there are things in here that we always do. Or like in the park fee fund, we've already received a grant, so we have to have that grant match. So it just kind of depends, but we can put some priorities around this.
Okay, and then the COP capital valve and pipeline replacement. Is that an assumption that you would approve COP bonds, or is this money already approved? I mean, it's in for next year, so I imagine it's not approved yet, but what is this line item for?
This was originally one of the COP bond projects to replace older sections of water mains and valves, primarily in the downtown area. And it's just on our list of the 17 projects, I believe it's 17 that we started out with. There are just some that are not going to get done to at some point in the future just because of the priorities. It's a case of, we know that they're aging and we have a few valves that are difficult to operate. But in the end, we're trying that, this is what the original estimate was to upgrade that program. But right now, if it doesn't move forward, then we'll do a much scaled down version of that based on our current budget.
But is this, so this project is left over from the original $20 million plus?
Yes.
Okay, and we haven't spent all that money yet
No, we haven't spent hardly any of it.
of the 20 million?
No, of the 600,000 that's
No,
budgeted.
no, but this 600,000, is that part of the $20 million projects, water projects?
Originally it was, yes.
Okay, and do we have 600,000 remaining to spend?
No.
So we've spent all the money and this project got dropped off the list due to other priorities.
Yes, it moved down the list because we had to finish building a tank. We had the 3 wells, we had the drill, we had things that were more operational. This is just one of those things out there that we're going to get to. And if we can't do it all at once, then we'll have more of a shortened plan to do the more critical valves that are in locations where if they failed, multiple blocks would be out of service, that kind of thing.
And the way it's listed is that there's a presumption we would do COP bonds in order to fund this.
No, that's just the title that that carried over from when it was on the list. It won't be a COP project anymore.
I will keep referencing COP bonds if you keep listing it with the word COP on there. So
We'll make sure all the COP references disappear from any future
cool. Thank you.
line items.
So, again, and we're gonna have to make some tough decisions, but if we took out that Jackson Creek Parkway project, that $9 million project, if we took that out, can everything else be funded that's on this list and the request list?
In the capital projects fund, yes, those would be all projects that would normally be funded in the capital projects. We are trying to come up with a solution for Jackson Creek Parkway, however, which is why we've put it in there. Because we do need to figure out how to fund that project.
Yeah, we need to figure out number one, we need to figure out how to fund it after it's been designed and we know how much it's gonna be. So, 'cause that's why. Yeah, but it's kind of. Yeah, I think I personally think it's gonna be more, but that's just
And
me.
the other thing to remember is it might not be like completed all in one year too, so it could carry over into multiple years.
Yeah. Okay, and then, I'm gonna jump around a little bit. On the 2A water, we have a loop project of 500,000 and then you have the loop NDS emergency interconnect for 250,000. So, are we tracking, are we trying to track both projects or, I mean, cause that's. Yeah, but I mean, we haven't decided which project we're gonna go with and how much those projects are, cause what I'm getting at is we don't know what the upfront cost is gonna be for the town to pay for either project, and then the rest is gonna be on the taxpayers' backs.
The emergency is going to be hooked up regardless, so that's different.
Okay, and the emergency is but that's nothing to do with renewable water then.
Well, it's an emergency interconnect.
We would pay, just like we have one with Palmer Lake, just like we have one with Forest Lakes, just like we have one with the development in Red Rock Ranch, Woodmore. It's.
I think to resolve that issue, the best thing is the way it's listed there is loop/NDS. It probably just should say
TriView or?
Drive-U
Okay.
Emergency Interconnect.
How many emergency interconnects do we need? Do we need one with every other water supplier?
Well, I'm pretty confident we don't really need a whole lot of them because we're in good shape. But it's just good practice that if you have a system that doesn't require just requires a one-time vault with some valves, it's probably good for the future. But we do have emergency interconnects with Forest Lakes Metro, with Forest View Acres.
Do we have one with Palmer Lake?
We do not.
Okay.
We have a connection available and it's up to them to get to that connection. And that's at the corner of Red Rock Ranch Road and 105.
Okay.
Then, I mean, that the whole budget's we have to decide on which direction we're gonna go, because that's gonna change the whole budget matters, depending on what the upfront cost of either project. That's why I'm kind of pushing for, we need to make a decision as this has been going on, I think, long enough.
So on that emergency interconnect, that the pipe is already in Connexus, right? We'll be able to put a connection on there at any time?
Well, the current way the IGA is drawn up, after I've reviewed it, and I believe the attorneys are in the process, is that it sounds like TriView is gonna put the connection in and then bill us for the cost for that. That's the way it's worded in that agreement, which there's things in there that are highlighted that we'll have to consult with them on.
So
That's
so
best
that won't
practice.
be optional when they hook up Connexus at some point.
Well, I believe that's where the pipeline to connect, the connection will be on Old Denver Highway,
Right.
somewhere
It's where-
just past Dirty Woman Creek in that location. And
Yeah.
it kind of lines up with their existing infrastructure in the ground. So it wouldn't be a whole lot of pipe, but it will nevertheless, I would imagine, be several $100,000 because there'll be a vault involved and a meter and some valves and things that we normally do for those.
That could be in 2 or 5 years. Would it matter at all, or does it have to be like right now?
It depends on the priorities of the board. I mean, it doesn't have to be now. It could be down the road, but
Well, I guess what I'm saying is we wouldn't have to tear up roads to do it later and make it more expensive. Would it be more expensive down the road other than just inflation?
I would imagine if there's roads built, yes, you'll either have to bore under them or cut them open to get there. But I don't know what the Connexus plan is. I haven't seen any. I know there's a new Old Denver road that's going to veer off to the southeast.
Right.
That might be the road that has to get crossed. But I have not seen TriView's plans as far as where they want to put this connection. I have an idea where it benefits the town the most.
I thought already,
I thought it was.
it's already there.
Yeah, I thought they already put that in.
They put what in?
The pipe,
the line.
they already put a 16-inch pipe all the way to Connexus, all the way to Old Denver Highway.
Yeah.
It's there.
It's something I was not aware of, but
Okay.
Well, we know they bored under the freeway to put a line in. I don't know how far into the
Right.
Connexus property it goes, but
It goes to Old Denver Highway.
Is it?
Yep.
Okay. We'll have to check on that.
well, they would have had to cross under the trail. That's why I wonder.
We live there,
Okay.
so
They bored under it.
under Old Denver Road.
Yeah. They went all the way under I-25 and
they would have
across.
had, I don't know how they would have had permission to come to our side of the,
Not the monument side. They stopped at Old Denver Highway.
so they didn't bore under it then.
They bored under I-25
Okay.
and went all the way to Old Denver to the
Stop.
edge of the Old Denver Highway.
Okay.
So all we have to do is bore under Old Denver and put the vault.
Well, we wouldn't need to bore under Old Denver. It would just be the new road that's yet to be built.
That too. Yeah.
But Old Denver itself would not be, the vault would be on the east side. Because that's where our current water main is.
On the east,
There you go.
no boring.
No boring.
Okay, other questions related to this? I mean, I really think that the council probably needs to see a priority list of items.
Oh,
Can, just real quick, can we add under the two-way water a line item for renewable water purchase? And just let's start talking about purchasing renewable water. I'd like a line item on that one, please.
Yeah, we never heard back from our executive session guest related to that. They were supposed to do some research for us.
Yeah.
Can you schedule an update for that?
Yes, our consultant, Bruce Lytle, has done everything that we asked him to do as far as finding available choices. But the actual guy that was supposed to put together the deal has been pretty non-responsive. So we're at the point now where we're just going to send him a thanks, but no thanks. We're going to find someone else.
Oh, perfect. Let's do that post haste, please, so we
Okay.
can, because it's been a few months, right?
Oh, it's
Yeah.
been at least
4 months.
3-4
When
months.
we had when we were discussing renewable water. With the water options.
Yeah, it's been a while.
I believe originally there was 5 potential
Right,
options at various amount of water, various prices.
right.
Because it's only going to get more expensive.
So I want to move forward, get us someone new who is not who's not responsive.
All right, you have more questions?
In regards to the $9 million in that
I have some,
$10 million
but-
investment that we have, after talking with our investment broker, with Piper Sandler, we do have $7.5 million of that coming due by the end of 2025. So we can choose whether we want to reinvest that or use that money for other projects such as the Jackson Creek Parkway project.
Well, end of 2025 is, or 15 months away. I think we need bids first. And once we have a number, we need to, if we've got the cash, I think we need to seriously consider using it, because otherwise there's no other funding mechanism. And the taxpayers have already given us this money. I don't want to ask them for more money.
The way the supply chain is working, we want to pre-order as soon as possible any material, whether it's pipes, concrete, whatever it is. We got to lead turn as much as possible the material purchasing. So which means, to your point, we're going to need cash up front to as soon as we sign that contract, we need that contractor to start ordering stuff.
And yes, that is, that 14 month till the end of 2025. July 31st, we would have the first, or no, I'm sorry, January 30th, we'd have the first quarter of that. So we'd have 2.5 million in the first month of 2025. And then by the end of May, we would have the other 2.5.
Okay, well, I don't know about the rest of you all, but I think that JCP needs to be put on the top of the list of priorities to look at completing the design, getting it out to bid, and making sure we have a way to fund it. Because this has been in the works the entire time I've been up here. And the fact that we have no other money earmarked for it is concerning.
Okay. Couple more questions from me. Page 8 with the law enforcement. Okay, so it says that the general fund of police is 30. So
Back when you were getting overtime pay for being a cop.
now just getting overtime pay for being in control. Okay, so the question is, I know that in the last meeting, obviously it's pretty tough to hire 9 right out the gate. You're talking about staggering that over the next couple of years. And
Permission to approach bench?
Chief Regal?
so, but in this current proposal right now, is there any has there been numbers drafted up to show that we're gonna post to hire 3 more police?
So between next year and the year after, I want to hire a total of 6.
Okay,
So I was looking at either 2 or 3 next year, 3 after that, and in the budget are 2 officers.
okay. Now, great. I am all for it. I am all for getting our police force enhanced, especially just due to the way Monument is growing in the surrounding areas and the response times. My second question about it is the salaries, because I know that that's a touchy subject, and I know that we're not even at the median or the median averaging if you look at other surrounding communities with police forces that similar size as ours. So is that in here as well as increasing their salary?
So earlier this year, when we did the step and grade,
Mhm.
that moved us a lot closer to that average.
Okay,
What we're counting on moving forward would be probably like a cost of living increase that would start moving that range up even further, but incrementally. So we're not taking a hit, 5-6% a year. It'd be more in like the 2 to 3% range.
Okay.
okay.
But it really does get us closer to that average.
Okay.
So you're looking at the cost of living increases, and then anything for like retirement packages if they stay 5 to 7 years? And
So,
then
yeah,
and that will enhance their compensation
I think
package.
I think we've done quite a bit of increase on overall staff matches.
Sure.
I don't,
Well, we have FPPA also. So we have a defined benefit program plus a match from the town.
Yeah.
We have a longevity pay system, which is not huge, but it gets up into the thousands the longer you've been here.
Okay.
But I'm all ears if you have ideas on the retention side, because that's usually what hurts us the most. And
Yeah.
if we can come together and come up with some ideas to benefit people to stay longer, I'm all for it.
Because I think the world of the police force. I think they do a fantastic job. I just hate when we train them up, they're here for a while, they start connecting with the community, they start making all these relationships, and then it's, either cost of living or a better offer comes up,
Right.
and they're packing their bags and they're going. So that's okay.
No, and we have unique challenges here. So you touched on some of them, but there's young kids that want to go be, rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
I don't offer rocking and rolling here, really.
good.
No, and I don't plan on
Yeah.
it, right? But you can go to other places that aren't that far away and get the excitement. So, yeah, it's definitely an interesting spot to be in. I will say that our retention has been fantastic recently.
Yeah.
In fact, Wynn is our most tenured cop.
Yep.
And next year he's gonna top out. So he'll be the first person to top out. To that point is now what do you do for the person that's topped out, right? How do I incentivize them to stay? Those COLAs help, you get a little bump here and there,
Yeah.
but that's what I'm saying. I'm always open to ideas for retaining people.
Yeah, retention bonuses. at
Let
the
let
end
me
of the
ask a
year.
question too, but on that note, because we've had conversations about code enforcement and where it actually belongs. In the budget overall, from a staffing perspective, has that been addressed where the possibility of moving code enforcement out from under police over to planning, has that been adjusted? Because right now, your budget probably includes 2 code enforcement officers,
Right. Our police safety.
police safety aides, right? Would you maintain having those police safety aides and having code enforcement, or are they going to be split between 2 departments? What have you guys discussed?
So we haven't discussed it, but I'll say from my perspective, anyone will say they should be in another department, right? Because it's a lot of work, but I will just say based on my experience, they're their own group. We do coordinate a lot with planning. I'm not going to be the one to point and say where they should go, but what I can answer from my side is that even if we hired that one code enforcement person, we're going to need at least one PSA to back them up on the weekends, right?
Right.
So we'd always want to have 7-day-a-week coverage, which we're not going to hire 2 code enforcement people to do it. I don't think. I think if we hired one code enforcement person, we could probably have one PSA back them up. Now, I've also said our PSAs do more than just code enforcement. There are our quartermasters. They help with traffic control and traffic accidents. So there's a lot more to that job, but I think the most pressing is always going to be code enforcement.
Okay, I just want to make sure that the positions are accounted for in the salaries and FTEs and that they're properly placed and paid so that they don't also decide not to be retained.
Got it.
So before you take off, if you're gonna, are you done with him?
Yeah, we
Okay.
can throw him back.
I don't want him to come back up here again. It's a lot of walking for this old guy.
There's no cookies or donuts, right?
Right.
Yeah, no cookies.
So there's 3 at least potential pretty good sized projects outside of the town of Monument that might show up here. And we have, I guess, what, MOUs with El Paso County? Is that how it works?
Yeah.
For whatever reason. So how does that, I mean, obviously that's going to impact Monument a lot. And is there adjustments that are made or you send, because you probably have to even hire more officers for that. Who pays for that?
Oh, wow. If I could answer that question, I'd probably be paid a lot more than I am.
Stop it.
I don't know. I think it's fairly unprecedented if we're talking about this, the scope of these projects that potentially might show up on our doorstep.
Right.
I don't know. I will say that we get a lot from the county already in terms of dispatching services and a lot of the stuff that they give to us. I don't know what the break even point is. So I don't know to say, okay, Project A was passed and now our goals for service went up 15%. Do we sit back at the table and figure out some sort of payment? I don't know.
Have you anywhere else, have you heard of like police impact fees that would be outside of your jurisdiction that
No.
we could maybe go after somehow?
No, I like the idea. I've never seen it in practice. So you're saying like another jurisdiction gets a
Or-
project that draws our resources
Right,
and they charge that tax base to pay us?
right.
I haven't seen that happen. But
Kind of like charging for an ambulance.
yeah, I mean, there's gonna have to be something. But the other thing too is I haven't done any of the work. I don't necessarily even know what the projects are to know what the calls for what it's gonna do our calls for service. So, I'm from Arizona and I joke about it, but now it's all the more like real to me is that in Arizona, you handle your city, you handle your town. There's really not bleed over. There's not crossover. Scottsdale and Phoenix were divided by Scottsdale Road.
Right.
And it was like, never the twain shall meet. Like you're on this side, we're on this side. If I need you, you'll know it because something really loud went off or something, but it is very, very rare. Where here, it's just seamless, like into the county, into Palmer Lake. It happens all the time.
Yeah, I see your cars driving up 105 to 83 all the time.
Yeah, we're out there a lot.
That
So
is way beyond our boundaries.
thank you. You're taking notes.
So,
Yeah, right.
so we
Write
need
that down.
to somehow figure out how we can generate some revenue for you off of that. And I'm not sure how that would be, but.
Yeah, an offset of some sort to where we could just break even, right?
In the budget expenses, obviously somewhere in one of these line items is a payment to El Paso County, right?
No,
So they dispatch for free.
Mhm.
And so the whole mutual aid agreement is a handshake that when we call you, you come, and when you call us, we come, and all by the way, on the cherry on top is we'll answer the phone for you.
correct. So we're not in a very good position to go and
Right.
start demanding anything.
No, I'm not looking to
We are-
demand.
no,
I just wanted
I
to.
just want to put it out there that
Yeah.
we do recognize what they do for us, and if we had to put a number on that.
Well, and I wouldn't necessarily even say that it would be an El Paso County expense. It would be more of a project expense for these,
Sure.
for the development of
Like,
these
yeah,
projects, like an impact fee.
Mhm.
Right.
Because if the county is going to turn the county area up here into California, right, with, hundreds of rooftops,
Thousands of
probably thousands.
north and south.
Yep. So coupled with, a massive truck stop. So, Texas style, literally. Well, I would think, well, I'm naive, so
We don't know what we don't know.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
And I would assume too, that's gonna be an influx of cash for them to be able to pay for their own police officers. I think a lot of the reasons why they don't staff a lot of deputies up here is they don't have the calls for service to support. If the infrastructure came in demanding that, they're gonna follow suit and make it happen. But at the end of the day, you're right, it'd be like, if there was an impact fee charged to the business that went to that municipality that had an MOU with us to pay whatever amount we come up with. I think that's doable. It's just, yeah, we're dealing with a lot of what ifs still.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a lot of bleed over too, like you mentioned. I mean, let's say those projects did happen. You've got those little enclaves. And if the call came in and it was from there, but then another call came in, and well, as long as you're there, why don't you go over here kind of thing?
Sure. But I don't wanna, I'd be remiss to say that it's not happening in town too, with those agencies backing us up. And I mean, it's kind of a one for one. But yeah, there's a lot to think about. But until we actually know what's happening, it's kind of just conjecture and.
Right. But we're talking about budgets, so that's why.
Understood.
Thanks.
Thank you. That's all I got.
Thank you.
For you.
Not for him. I'm done with him.
Row.
Right now, I just have one question and then one comment. And the question is, what is the amount required needed to remain in our reserve? What percent is it? 12, 15, 17, 20%? What's the magic number?
I don't know the exact number. Previously, we've been trying to hold it at a 15%.
Okay, and where are we at right now?
Right now, we're at almost an 8.5.
With this budget, we're still at
Correct.
15%.
That's without the increased revenue. And I can look into and get you that exact percentage for the reserve.
So right now we're at 15, but with this budget, it would knock us down to 8.5?
Correct.
Are we at 15 right now?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. We're not at 15. This budget increased ours from, I believe the last one was about 4% to the 8.5.
I thought we ended last year with the assumption of a 15% reserve. For this,
That was for this year, but we're looking at 25.
right, but are we at 15% for this year?
No.
Are we in the hole?
As I need to look at a full picture, but I do not believe so.
Okay, and then on again, as we're looking at stuff here, now I'm going to page 16. And I'm gonna bring this up again. I don't think with what we're facing financial wise, I don't think it is the time to add council member pay in there. That's, estimated 42 grand, which could be paying for other things that we need, that staff needs or someone else needs. So I just don't think that it's time to add to it or add to our budget when we can probably take a look at that in a future year.
And
or
that
two.
discussion is later, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have one question regarding salaries for the general fund, especially for public works and staff and as well as the water bubbas. How are we doing on salaries in those areas? Are we in the median, above, below? Hopefully not. How are we keeping ourselves competitive in that department?
One of the things that we're hoping to do is a compensation analysis. I don't know that we'll get it done this year. We're looking into how much that's going to take.
Okay.
But it's one of the things that we're looking at for potentially the end of this year into next year, with looking at all of those positions over the next couple of years.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Steve?
Yeah, I got a couple things. So on page 16, with the comprehensive plan that's got the 200,000 grant funded. So that has a time limit on that grant probably. Is that correct?
Correct, 5 years from when we received it.
Oh, it's 5 years. Okay. And with the energy the energy stuff, that's 250 with the, and that's a grant match, but you have that grant matched already, right? Didn't you get that 500,000 for that?
Correct. So it's a $2 million project.
Oh, I
We're
see.
we're in the process of applying for 2 other grants in addition to the 500,000 that we've already received. So, but regardless, we have to have this $250,000 cash match to make all of these grants work.
So wherever you have a comment related to a grant, that needs to be somehow highlighted to indicate the money has to be there. It needs to be funded.
Right, yeah, we don't want to lose these grants for
No.
sure. And then on page 17, the same thing with the stormwater. It says ARPA funds there. So does the ARPA funds cover the entire stormwater budget or that
So
is
the
in
way
addition?
ARPA funding has parameters around how those monies can be used. And so stormwater is one of the few ways that those funds can be used. So the $2 million will be used for stormwater projects.
And that would be all ARPA funds.
Correct.
Okay, so that's an easy priority, right?
Yeah, because you have a end of life date on that money too.
The funds have to be encumbered by the end of this year. So we have to
End
have
of this year.
Yeah, so we don't spend them until 2026, but the funds have to be encumbered, so under contract by the end of this year.
And how close are we to that?
Close. We're still trying to figure out if it's going to go towards Jackson Creek Parkway project or if it's going to go towards some other stormwater projects around town.
Okay. So long as both project, whatever you decide needs to make sure there's a negative impact on the watershed and what goes into USAFA. I assume that's taken into consideration. Okay. I don't feel like getting yelled at by the general.
Yeah, no.
No, seriously,
No, I agree with you 100%.
looking at Ken.
I think that's all I have for right now.
Any other questions for staff on the budget?
I already had mine answered. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Murray. We'll move on to something more festive. I hope someone brought drinks with them. For Liquor License Authority, Ms. Erickson.
Good evening, council. Tonight I bring you a caller of, oh my goodness, if I can talk. A festival permit application submitted by Colorado Brewers Group LLC. They applied for the festival permit for Vines and Brews Festival to be held on September 21st, 2024 at Limbaugh Park at 151 Front Street. The application was filed on September 3rd, 2024. From the evidence submitted, the applicant is a qualifying license type to obtain such permit. And the applicant has permission to use the proposed location for the festival within the areas of the diagram that are included in the council packet. We are just looking for approval of the festival permit.
Okay, I do believe this is a public hearing item, correct? People get to vote on this or speak? No? Could have sworn we asked the public about whether they're for or against it, but all right, council, any comments or questions related to the Vines and Brews Festival coming up? No? Anybody going? Anybody got their tickets?
I'll probably go, but I don't have my ticket.
Is there tickets left? 100 left. $4 million. That will help pay for Jackson Creek Parkway. I think they were like 25 or 30 bucks. 25. Get your tickets.
And if you don't go, get your ticket.
Yeah, if more beer for us. All right, if there's no questions, then I will look for a motion.
Motion to approve the festival permit application for Colorado Brewers Group LLC for Bines and Brews Festival for event to be held at Limbach Park, 151 Front Street.
A second. Oh,
Motion a second, Ms. Simpson.
Aye.
Yes.
Mike. Councilmember Kimball,
Yes.
Councilmember Romanello,
Yes.
Councilmember Abbott,
yes.
Mayor LaKind,
Yes.
and Councilmember Chronic.
Yes.
All right, that motion passes 7-0. We will see. Is the applicant even here, or is it, are you? I was just gonna see you at the festival. Okay. Next up, we have a council report, aging program funding, Councilmember Chronic.
The report that was given to us from the Area Agency on Aging, AAA, not to be confused with the Automobile Club, provided this just as an informational kind of thing as to what is being proposed by the House and the Senate in terms of spending versus what has happened before. And in a way, it's kind of telling, but this is more informational than anything else.
Okay. Thank you for preparing that. All right, next up, we have ordinance number 2024, an ordinance amending titles 3 and 5 regarding revenue and finance and business licenses and regulations of the Monument Municipal Code. Javon, Mr. Quarles.
All right, good evening, council. So as the mayor said, this ordinance is going to amend titles 3 and 5 of the code. So I just want to give you a little just refresher background. So we're doing this kind of in 2 ordinances with title 3 and 5. So this first part is generally just to conform with the charter. So you'll see a lot of definitional changes, updating code sections, things like that. There are a few substantive changes but that is it for the most part. And we did get a question or some comments earlier today. So I did want to just address this is amending titles 3 and 5 rather than like repealing and readopting. So if you don't see a particular code section listed, it's because it's already in the code. So that's why it's not in this ordinance. All right, so a few of the changes include changes in the proposed budget from being required to be presented at the first town council meeting of September. And we just reverted that to be what it says in the charter, which is that it just has to be presented by September 30th. So just gives you a little bit more flexibility. The other major change is publication of expenditures. Your current code requires that expenditures be published no later than 20 days after a town council meeting. And so they've changed this to just be a quarterly publication. Another big change here is that it does require the town to engage a new auditor every 3 years. So I think just kind of a transparency and honesty sort of provision there.
Where did that 6-year part of that come in, Javon? It said, it's at the end of it, it says something about that hasn't been around. The person hasn't been part of anything for the last 6 years. Where did that come from? Is that just something you guys added?
Yeah, I don't know if that was from a previous conversation Bob had, but I think the intent is just, if this person has become pretty familiar with the town, we also want to make sure they're not doing the audit and don't have any conflicts potentially.
Okay, I appreciate that.
And so we did get a question. I know, Mr. Mayor, you're going to want to talk about this as well, but about the traffic fee exemption. So there is an exemption for the first 500 square feet of new construction. And so I think generally, that's a very small, like physical area, right? So I think the intent is to not capture any very small scale projects. because imposing an impact fee in that situation is probably not worth it. And I did want to point out as well that this is not something that we added. This was already in the code. So the changes there, we're just kind of cleaning up the terms. So that's not anything new.
But isn't that part of that part of the code though? Our traffic impact fee currently is on a per unit basis, so it doesn't have any square footage parts to it, unless it was simply a 500 square foot structure or something to that effect, or a 500 square foot addition. I mean, I can understand that, but it's on a per unit basis otherwise, isn't it?
Yes, but your current code does have that exemption that says just that first 500 square feet is exempted.
Yeah. What happens when somebody builds 15 feet from the road then?
I guess I'm not really following your question.
Well, I mean, this would exempt impact based on 500 square feet.
It's the first 500 square feet.
Yeah, but what about all those apartments that are going to be along Jackson Creek 15 feet from the road?
But they won't be 500 square feet. So when we do our impact fee update, I mean, I would assume that would address all that. This is probably a question for Dan. So can we just take this out and then deal with it then, or do we need to leave this in?
I don't know enough about what we're doing right now, but I would assume that as we're doing our study, we'll come up with a newer game plan, and we'll modify the code as needed. So
We can modify this one line item in this part of the code when we do that at that point.
that's my feeling. Yes.
Okay.
As long as it's legal, we can do it.
Well, right. Right now it's $707 a unit for single family homes. So the 500 foot doesn't really come into play. It's just a per unit basis right now.
I would agree with that.
Okay, all right.
So probably should just make a mental note to review this section 324030 when we get to the impact fee study.
Right.
Understood.
I think there might be something more to add. We're just checking the language. So we didn't have a copy of the traffic system impact fee regulations. But I don't think 500 feet is going to rise to a unit under any circumstances. So the idea might be that to lessen the administrative burden, if something is that small, so smaller than a typical 2-car garage, you wouldn't want to go through the hassle of doing a full traffic impact study because it would tie up resources of the town council and the planning department.
Yeah, more for the addition part, I think is probably a better use of that. Like if you added a 500 square foot addition on a house, you're not impacting the traffic at all. The new construction part was the only part of that I was concerned with, but we charge by per unit anyway, so it doesn't even seem like it really comes into play at this point.
Yeah, and I don't imagine even an accessory dwelling unit would be under 500 square feet.
Yeah, you could do that.
I think
I mean, you could build one under 500 square feet, but yeah, it would probably not be many of them.
Yeah,
Right.
and then you might not have a car either, so. That's it. We do need to look at the, one thought we had is it might be to maintain consistency with the traffic impact study regulations. So we need to obtain a copy of those to review. We just didn't have time for the call.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. And then, so the last thing on this ordinance, so there's a provision in the ordinance that allows, and I'm moving to Title 5 to the business licenses now. So say, an applicant gets their business license, and then for some reason, there's a list of conditions in these amendments that the town clerk, they can revoke that license if the licensee fails to comply with certain conditions. And so the current way that we have it set up is that they can appeal to a hearing officer. One, from the comments that we received, one thing we do need to correct is we need to specifically define who that hearing officer is. And so one suggestion that you guys can talk about and see kind of where you want to go with it is, the mayor earlier talked about wanting the town council to have, an ability to step in if he feels like something went wrong there. So an option would be to perhaps appoint a committee. It could be, 2 or 3 of the town council members to step in as the hearing officer. And so we also wanted to get your thoughts on that. And I know, Mr. Mayor, you had comments on that. So if you want to expand.
Sure. So as I was reading this and looking at the grounds for suspension or revocation, there are statements in here related to the place of business, the premise, the building, land use does not comply with the requirements of our town codes, including but not limited to zoning, land use, et cetera. So since we're the ones that approve land use and zoning and things of that nature, it made sense to me that if we're the ones approving the usage of the business being there and subsequently the business license, that the council would have the ability to step in and back the clerk should the clerk's office get resistance on compliance. So I'm not going to give specific examples at this point in time, but I think that we should have the ability to step in as a council, review the non-compliance factors that cause the clerk to send out mailers certified and possibly levy fines. And if the council makes the determination that they're not complying, that we suspend the license ourselves, and providing that's legal. And hearing officer, my thought was that hearing officer would be a court, whether it be municipal or district, because they could override us. A judge could. And that would give a licensee the ability to appeal beyond the council. But I don't know what part is legal or not. I just know that we're the ones who define the zoning. We're the ones who define the land use. And if they're not in compliance, we should have a say in whether the business is allowed to maintain operations in the town.
So as far as the legality, a business license it's a property right. So a person is entitled to a hearing for that. So I think you could set it up in a couple of different ways. I think what you're talking about in the sense of the court is like they're always going to have that option to ultimately take it to a court. I think the way this ordinance is currently written, we have this ambiguous hearing officer so that needs to be defined. That could be you, that could be a commission that you appoint. Or I think what you're kind of getting at is we could implement some sort of step in between there, where you can step in between the town clerk and that hearing officer. But the hearing officer is not intended to be, a court.
Understand. So in light of any other, based on what I brought up, because I think we're missing a layer here. Is there agreement that the council should be listed in here as a point, a layer, since we're the ones that authorize the business to begin with, and with their, if they're not compliant with things like PUDs and. Well, but we still have power. I mean, if the clerk comes to us and says this business is not compliant with something specific like land use, and we're in charge of land use, we should have a say over what happens to that business.
Because ultimately, what Javon was saying is, let's say we rescind that authorization, presumably he goes to the court then at that point, correct? So,
Or he complies.
or he complies.
Or at the same token, we could modify it.
Right.
Yeah.
But there could be other things that have to, like, we can suggest, hey, you need a modification, go back to the planning department to modify your zoning or your PUD or land use, and then come back and refile your application again with us, and then the council then gets to say whether we want to approve it or not. But I think that we're just missing a layer here. And as far as the definition of the hearing officer goes, I think we need to remedy that, and if it's if it's another committee that we have to create that we've never created before.
Can we just say town council? Can we just have them come to the town council?
You could do that. That is an option.
That way we're not setting up yet another bureaucratic. I mean,
This is probably going to be fairly rare.
yeah, but
Except for right now, it's not rare.
Well,
I think just to be, what you need to be aware of is, yes, maybe it will be rare, and then so it's maybe not a big problem. But obviously that requires all council members to be present.
Yep.
To review, to do that work. So you just need to be aware of that when you're considering whether you want all of you or if you want to appoint a commission.
Could I offer potentially a suggestion? There is a circumstance in our code elsewhere where the clerk would have to hire or appoint a hearing officer, and that's in the Fair Campaign Practices Act violations. And when a situation arises that a hearing officer is to be appointed, what we have done in the past is just found qualified hearing officers. And the reason that I believe that we were supposed to do that is it removes any kind of bias from staff and council, and also affords you the opportunity to find someone who's qualified to run a hearing and is familiar with evidentiary procedures and processes around hearings and has all that legal expertise, but is not an employee or a appointed official of the town. So it creates a less biased hearing for those people at that time.
that's a good point.
thank you. Yeah, that's a.
Okay.
So would the answer then to be to replicate that part of that code in this, or refer to it, or?
Well, I mean, if we got to a situation where the town clerk issued a revocation and it went through the appeal and we had to have a hearing, the town clerk would seek out people who do this. I mean, there's like Karen Goldman, who works for CML, has been employed by the town previously to be a hearing officer. Jeff Wilson, and there are people there's a handful of people throughout the state who do this, this is their bread and butter, and they know how to do this, and they're not, they're completely independent of the situation, and they're going to run a fair and unbiased hearing, and it's easy to find people to consult with.
I like that suggestion because
So how do those hearings work typically, as far as, are witnesses called, or how does that work?
I haven't been involved in one that had to go all the way through a hearing. I have had to employ someone as a hearing officer to provide advice. But, it's any kind of hearing would require notice, and yes, potentially subpoenas, and taking witness testimonies and gathering evidence, and having somebody take like a stenographer. It wouldn't be the town clerk taking minutes. It's you run a hearing independently of staff.
So typically it's an advisory role more than it goes to an actual hearing,
I mean, it is an actual hearing,
right?
so I don't know how
But
to
you
answer you
said,
there,
you said.
because I haven't been
past it
involved
was
in one
more of
specifically.
an advisory position.
I can't hear you.
You said before it was more of an advisory position when you.
Well, when I had to engage with somebody who I thought was going to be running a hearing for me, this individual gave me advice on how to proceed, and it ended up that we didn't need to go through the official hearing process.
I see. All right, thanks.
Okay. I can live with that for the time being. And I appreciate the explanation. That made a lot of sense. Thank you. All right, Mr. Quarles, any other comments related to this particular ordinance that you want to share with us?
I think we have any other comments right now. I think obviously just remember this is a public hearing, so
Yeah,
we open it up.
I will.
And then, we can make a motion to continue with direction.
I have one comment or one question. So on the impact, on the stormwater impact fees on 3.28.015, it says interim fees. And then it talks about the fees based on the studies conducted by El Paso County. Should that be changed to where it's studies conducted by El Paso County or the town of Monument at Monument's discretion or something to that effect, or
What number? 328 was?
3.28.015?
Just give me a second, I'm looking at the language.
Okay. And it does say interim, so that I don't know exactly what the interim would be.
That might be something I have to get back to you on. I'm not really familiar with how those fees are implemented.
Just
If you
because
guys
we're about ready to do a study and it won't have anything to do with El Paso County. So,
I mean, I would think that, yeah, your own study would apply, and you could implement that in the code. So that's another thing we can take back, and I'm sure Bob knows a little bit more about that. So if he could help out.
okay.
But it sounds like the interim fees are interim until completion of a formal needs analysis. Presumably that's where we come in. And so we rely on El Paso County study to begin the fees on an interim basis until our study is done, and then the actual fees take place. That's how I read it.
Well, and I agree with you. I just want to make sure that
Okay.
we're on the same page.
Okay, this is a public hearing item, so opening it up to the public. Is there anybody here who would like to speak for or against this ordinance that amends Titles 3 and 5? Okay, seeing none. Will, anybody online?
There are no hands raised online, Mayor.
Okay, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the council for further discussion or motion.
And we're doing a motion to continue, correct? Javon?
Correct.
Okay. All right, I'll make a motion to continue ordinance number 2020-24, an ordinance amending titles 3 and 5 regarding revenue and finance and business licenses and regulations of the Monument Municipal Code. And do we need to state to what date or just continue?
You can state a date if you would like, but you don't have to.
Let's continue.
Just continue without a date.
Continue without a date?
Because
How long will it take for you guys to figure this?
I don't think the edits will take too long. I would probably suggest, if we're gonna set a date, to October 7th.
Yeah, I would agree a month.
To October 7th.
Second,
You have a motion and a second, Ms. Simpson?
Mayor Pro Tem King,
Yes.
Councilmember Kimball,
yes,
Councilmember Chronic,
yes,
Mayor LaKine,
Yes.
Councilmember Farito,
Yes.
Councilmember Abbott,
Yes.
and Councilmember Romanello.
Yes.
All right, next up, motion passed 7-0. Next up, ordinance 21-24, an ordinance modifying notice and publication requirements. Mr. Quarles.
All right, so again, council, this ordinance is really just, it's pretty simple. We wanted to just modify the town code to kind of come in, update with modern times in terms of publication requirements. So the main thing that this ordinance does is to remove newspaper publications where it's not necessary. And so what we did was modify the provisions to allow for publication generally 15 days prior to a public hearing being required. And then it'll be posted on the town's website as well as on the bulletin board in the lobby. So it's pretty simple ordinance, but open to any questions.
Any questions from the council?
No. Pretty straightforward.
Okay, another public hearing item. Open the public hearing. Anybody in the public want to speak for or against this ordinance? All right, seeing none. Will, anybody online?
No hands raised online, Mayor.
All right, then I'll bring it back to the council for further discussion or a motion.
I move that for approval of ordinance number 21-2025, an ordinance modifying notice 24, an ordinance modifying notice and publication requirements.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Simpson.
Councilmember Chronic,
Yes.
Councilmember Romanello,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem King,
Yes.
Councilmember Kimball,
Yes.
Mayor LaKind,
Yes.
Councilmember Abbott,
Yes.
Councilmember Furrier.
And the motion passes 7-0. We'll move on. We have no resolutions tonight. Holy moly. We'll move on to discussion items. First one, changes to the town code regarding impervious surfaces. Mr. Councilmember King, Mayor Pro Tem King.
First off, I will say with all the digging in I've done with this, this is way above my pay grade. There are so many nuances to this. But the intention here is to try to figure out a way to no longer impact USAFA to the extent that they have been impacted by excessive runoff. And every municipality does this a little bit different. Some have impervious surface limitations. Others have just lot coverage with structures like we do. Some charge fees for an additional impervious surface area. In the end, it all comes down to detaining the water to some degree and keeping it as close to as historic flows as possible. But there's, public roads and other things, and people move into houses and put patios in, expand their driveways and add additions and all kinds of things. And there are also places that will do minimum landscaping requirements in addition to, the lot coverage areas. So I don't really know how to get to that point to where we're not impacting USAFA to the degree that they're being impacted. I know it's not just us. There's a lot of stuff in the county and Colorado Springs as well, but to control our part of it, some of these drainage studies that I've seen are using 30-year-old data, and we just have to figure out a way to mitigate this. So for example, Connexus is going to have a fairly large pond at the south end of that property. And I think that comes out at, is that Teach Out where that dumps into? I think it might be Teach Out. I'm not entirely sure, but can that pond also be big enough in order to help with the stuff coming off of Jackson Creek in those areas? I mean, we need some additional lines of defense, I think. And, some of these even have the ability to recharge aquifers if they're built in a certain way. So that's really what I got. And I'm going to defer to our expert planning director over here for or comments on this?
Thanks for the warning.
Well, this is a discussion. We're not going to come up with a plan
I mean,
today.
I think there are many ways to address it, from the small to the large. I mean, I've noticed in our code that there are limits to what we consider or pervious surfaces. Our lot coverage standards really is based on just the home itself. If you want to look at a single family lot, it doesn't talk about the patios, decks, and other surfaces. And the Plan Commission actually is going to be talking about that topic for single family homes at an upcoming Plan Commission meeting. Because the state has made it illegal for use of AstroTurf at some locations where
Right.
you can't. So because that affects stormwater runoff. So we're going to be looking at that. I've also noticed in a couple of our previous projects that we're kind of lax on how we the rule said about managing stormwater on those properties. So you'll start seeing some new projects coming in which are not lax, that are holding the development more accountable to holding the water beyond just you described the 30-year-old report. We're gonna have to take a look at a lot of things. I think what the most important part of this discussion is actually a stormwater report, or a stormwater study, because a lot has changed since we last looked at it. Certainly since some of our developments have started putting in public improvements and trying to figure out how to mitigate stormwater. And it's too hard to point at one developer and say that you're causing the problem. No more, just as difficult as talking to one homeowner that they're causing the problem. So I think we need to take a comprehensive look at that. And we'll start to do that as part of the comprehensive plan study. Really take a look at the system that we own at the end of the day, whether it's privately managed or it's owned by the town. So that kind of shows that I put some thought into it, but I don't have much more to.
No, and again, this is just for discussion, but
Sure.
at some point, we need to have certain lines of defense, and ultimately Falcon Commerce Center is the last line of defense. And, but there are some places further upstream from there, like Connexus, who hasn't built their pond yet. And, even Jackson Creek itself, when it dumps into, Falcon Commerce Center, maybe there's a opportunity to do some type of pond in that system to slow it down.
I think it's important for us to take, as we're looking at the inventory of systems that we already have in place, to probably review those systems in a public forum like this. So as each of these developments start to bring in their next development piece, it's in Connexus or Falcon Commerce Center, I'm going to be asking them to bring their stormwater expert to kind of do a review with you of their overall system. I mean, I don't think the developer's evil in this case. I think that there's just lots of parts to their system that we haven't looked at in a while. And so I think it's important we review those with them and try to see, and then also require them a more up-to-date study, as you described before. Because our storms are different today. They're not the same as the historic levels that we've seen in the past. So I think it's, and then you and I and the mayor, we saw firsthand the damage that's occurring at USAPA. So we want to make sure that we're not part of that future.
And in Falcon Commerce Center, for example, they have their pond, which, whether it's adequate or not, I have no idea, but they have a lot of property in there that's undeveloped, and they designed that based upon what kind of criteria? I mean, 100% impervious coverage over those sites, or 70% or what? I mean, I just don't know how they came up with that design. And in addition, it's also, like I said, kind of the last line of defense before it hits USAPA property. So
that's why I want them to come in and tell their story and show those studies to us, break it down for us. If you guys if you're open to that.
Oh, 100%. I want to try to fix this.
I'd like them to be able to come in, and we do have one for Falcon Commerce Center coming up pretty soon. They'll need to come in and show why they feel that they have the ability to cause that kind of runoff on this single property, and how much is left as they start to develop the other properties before they start causing known damage, potentially known damage to the neighboring sites. So
Right.
I think this is a good conversation. We're not the only ones having this issue. And besides Colorado, this is a national issue. The storms are changing. So the impact of those storms are certainly changing, and we're all responsible. I'm hoping that through the comprehensive planning process, we'll also talk about how individual homeowners could be storing water or keeping the water on their property before releasing it, and using that water too. So we're going to look at everything. We have to work together to make sure we're not causing damage to the natural environment.
Sure. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I've got a question related to the 30-year-old study, because I've heard it mentioned multiple times over the last 4 years. Who wrote it, and what's the obligation to what government entity to have it updated? So that it's obviously taking into consideration.
Mayor LaKine, it's not a 30-year-old study. I think we're just being sarcastic or
No.
kind of expanding. There are older studies out there, but the studies that are becoming before us aren't that old. But they are, but the 100-year storm measurements and so on are based on a pretty far out history. And we're all trying to play catch up.
Well, there was a study referenced at the USAPA immersion tour that the guide spoke of, and said that this is what the developers use. And so I am just wondering, what are they, every single time a developer comes to any place, in the county and the town, are they starting from scratch, taking historical data and then updating their engineering work based on that for stormwater runoff?
It's my understanding that it's old. It is historic data that helps them determine what a 100-year storm is compared to a 50-year storm or to a 200-year storm. I'm certainly not an engineer, and that's not my expertise, but those are the numbers USAPA was probably referring to, is the old historic numbers. And we're not having historical storms right now, or if we are, it's there.
We did last year. We had quite a bit of historical water.
Yeah, they're not based on the storm that you had every 100 years. So there, as I said, I think the stormwater and experts are all trying to revisit and get a better understanding of where we're heading and how we need to prepare for it. So I think that's what they were referring to during our tour, was the old calculations. But I think we have the ability to reasonably challenge those to make sure that we're not the cause through bad decisions, that we're trying to contain runoff and protect our neighbors.
Okay. Anything else to talk about?
No, thank you. Did you have a comment, Tom?
Yeah, just going to add a couple of things. In 2006, the town had a stormwater master plan by Ayers Associates, I believe. And I know some of the data was used when they calculated where our inlet structures and where detention ponds, it had a lot of input into that report. And then the other thing I wanted to add is, you're right, as far as I remember the layout down Old Denver, Teach Out Creek would be the main recipient of all of that development that's happening in Connexus. And as you got south, there's one other creek south that's a very low flow, and I never heard of any issues with it. It's called No Name Creek. And I don't know when that was built, way before my time. Then the next creek is all the way down in Falcon Commerce on Jackson Creek. All where it makes its way to Monument Creek down the road. But those are the three major creeks, I think, that are impacted by all development from basically Dirty Woman Creek South.
Right.
Everything is gravity flowed in one way or another to those specific structures.
Thank
Mayor
you.
Pro Tem King, the other thing I wanted to mention to you is when we're looking at the impact fee study, when we're doing an impact fee study, this is going to be a major component to that conversation. I'm already starting to have talk to the county about how we do stormwater impact fees, and how they're changing how they do their impact fee analysis for stormwater, and how and potentially recommendations for how we might consider doing that as well, so we can better maintain or improve our stormwater facilities.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you for that, Mr. King. We move on to council compensation. Councilmember Chronic.
Thank you. Okay, the premise behind this particular study and the conversation, the ensuing conversation, is that time is a finite commodity that we all have. And if you are working, you're compensated for that time. The fact that we are elected officials doesn't necessarily mean that our time is not valuable. And most of the time, elected officials are compensated for that time. So in putting together this study, this is an attempt to recognize the value of our time. And many of us spend a lot of hours outside of sitting here at the dais. And I just really think that to encourage people, more people to get involved, it could be an incentive. I'm not saying that it is, I'm saying it could be. The scenarios that I put forward with a highest, lowest, average, and then a recommended are just talking points at this juncture. I don't see the bottom line as being gruesome. I don't see it as being prohibitive, but I do see it as something that should be included in our budget. We do spend a lot of time. And those of us who don't work, we're not compensated at all, regardless. So that's the premise, and my proposal, obviously, and was included, thank you, Steve, to a degree, was a scenario 4 where the council members got paid $500 a month, the mayor pro tem $700, and the mayor $900, because in the study that supported this data, mayor pro tem and mayors got compensated to a greater degree. That's it. The goal is an ordinance.
The goal, yeah, so the goal would be to have a discussion. And if there's agreement to provide direction to staff by way of our attorney to write an ordinance, which would put in the agreed upon compensation that would begin for those elected in November, beginning in January 2025. So I am sure there are people who have something to say. Now's the time.
First off, thank you. Thank you for collecting the information. Thank you to staff for their assistance. I agree with you. And I know some folks on the council have put in a whole lot more hours than some of the rest of us, but we all put in work. I'm not opposed to it. Yeah, I'm good. Excuse me, I'm good with it. But thank you for putting it in and putting in the work for it.
Welcome.
Yeah, I echo that as well. I want to thank you for putting the work in. I saw that sheet you put together. It's impressive. And I've been for some type of very small, which is what you proposed anyway, budget wise, for people, because there is a lot more time than on the dais, especially when you serve on other boards or committees, as I do, and I know many of you else do as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
So it's interesting. I discussed this with another mayor who was going through something similar with their council, and it's funny when they calculate the averages, there's 2 or 3 municipalities that they have to remove for it will skew the number very much downward trend, and of course Monument is one of them. I only think there's about 3. It's a very small number of municipalities across the entire state that their councils don't get any type of compensation. So I don't disagree. I'm indifferent into the method in which this were to get approved. I don't have a problem with the numbers you came up with. I'm sure some of those other municipalities may in turn decide to add us back in the future of their calculation.
I appreciate the time and the information that Councilman Chronic had put together. I am in total disagreement with compensation because we volunteered to put our names up for election and to have the residents vote us in to these seats. We volunteer our time. That was the premise on this. And the closest areas that are on this chart are Castle Pines, Lone Tree, and Trinidad. Everything else is much further out.
Trinidad. Population wise or?
No, just on here. I don't, so I'm looking for comparisons on yes, sizes and then just location. But I think the money needs to be spent towards staff, the department needs, and the police force, vice us. I mean, they're doing, yes, council members are doing a tremendous amount of time on other committees. We're all doing time by reading all this information before we come up here, so we're prepared to talk about things and vote on things. But staff and the department's needs, well, staff does a tremendous, they do a tremendous job, and they spend a hell of a lot more time on anything. And the department needs outweigh the council getting paid anything, because the department needs are going back to getting jobs done for the entire town. So I just don't think it's the time right now, especially with how the budget is set up and the decisions that we have to make, and leaving some things off the chopping block that are going to affect staff's work and how they get things done, whether it's going to end up making things more difficult for them to do things as we don't modernize, or not. So that's my humble opinion on it. I will say that if this is passed by the other council members, my funds are going to go to Tri-Light Cares and some other the organizations in town. That's not what I'm running on. That's not what I want. I believe in service before self and serving others, and that's what I volunteered to do. So that's my piece.
Thank you, Ken.
All right, I'll jump in. I do this because this is my home and I care about it. And the only reason I'm here is because of that. When I was on the Home Rule Charter Commission, we had a long discussion, and Ms. Chronic, you were there. And the only thing that held me back from putting it, or the only thing that questioned my decision ultimately my vote on that is to just keep it off, and we kept it in the charter per statute that the council could vote on it, was the fact that are we hurting some people that want to do this position but may have kids and can't afford babysitting? We did have a lot of discussion about that, and this would, maybe cover that, or at least most of it. So I'm a little bit indifferent on it. I'm with Ken. I would take whatever funds there were and donate it to some worthy place, because I'm here because this is my home. And but there is a little bit of an optics issue right now, just because we're running a deficit in our budget. And I'm not entirely sure this is the right time to do this. This wouldn't impact me because I'm in the middle of a term. So after, I'd have to win another election before I would receive any funds from this anyway. But I'm a little bit on the fence for that reason.
So I think this is the third time that this has come up as a course of conversation since I've been up here. Councilmember Romanello, does that sound about right?
That sounds about right.
And I think the previous times that it came up, it was mostly the decision not to move forward was mostly due to economic impact. What was going on in the economy at the time? Not so much the optics, although obviously that makes, if the economy is bad, then it does not look good if council members are receiving or voting for to receive money. I'm very indifferent to the whole thing. I think that if the voters, I'm more inclined to allow the voters to make this decision. And I thought, honestly, that's how it was supposed to be. And which is why I asked our attorney if the council was legally allowed to put an ordinance in place.
That's how statute is.
Right. Unless we put it in the charter. That said, I do put in over 20 hours a week.
More than that.
Okay.
Yes.
I put in a lot of hours a week. I travel at my own expense for the most part. Typically it's up to Denver and back. I've never asked for reimbursement in mileage or fuel cost. And of course, PPACG and the other committees that I sit on. So I can see why it would bring value to the position. It's not going to make anybody rich, but it certainly doesn't hurt to get reimbursed for the expenditures that are going out. The overall dollar amount that looks like was recommended, and it's in the packet so the public can see it, appears to be $49,200 on an annual basis, and that covers all 7 people. Is that correct?
Correct.
I mean, but to be clear, it's 49,000 after the second set of elections,
Correct.
not right away, right? Because it would, the first set of payments, if this passed, would start in January
And
for
it would
the
be
4 people, and then, so it's not 49,000 out the gate.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
And then you'd have to probably, in an ordinance, you'd probably have to adjust for, at the very least, COLA. Or you could leave it the same. I think one of our sister cities down to the south hasn't, I don't know how they've adjusted theirs, but I know that they had a dollar amount in their charter, and I don't think it's been moved. The needle hasn't moved much since then, and that charter is old. So it's up to the council on what they want to do.
We have one more council.
Yep. Senna?
That's a really tough one. It's a lot of work. And I get what Ken's saying. We signed up to do this. It was more than I expected, I'll be honest. I I have two teenagers. While they are older, it's still rough sometimes, especially when they come to my house for the week to leave and be here all night, while they're at home. So sorry, it's one of them calling now. It's a lot of work, but at the same token, I feel like people coming on board, I want them to do it without the incentive, right? I don't want them to do it because of it. I will not benefit from it, and that's fine. I'm sort of on the fence. I don't know that I would care if it was an ordinance or we let people vote. But it's a lot of work. But we do it because we love it, right? Steve's right. We don't do it because, we're sitting up here taking selfies, at least not me, Marco. But I'm kidding.
You're taking selfies?
Yeah, I'm on the fence. I could go either way. And I see what you're saying, and you do work. I feel like even though you're retired, you do put in more than the rest of us do, but it's still the packets, reading, reviewing. I mean, you don't just ever read a packet once, you go through it again and again and again. But it's an honor to be up here and to be voted in without the compensation. Would it be nice? Yes, I'm not gonna lie, but I'm on the fence. That's all I can say.
We have until, what day is election day? November 4th, 5th?
November 5th.
5th. So in order for an ordinance, we need 10 days on the books, right? 10 days on the calendar. So the ordinance would have to be passed by the second meeting in October in order for it to be valid.
Is it too late to put it on?
It wouldn't be on, it's too late to be on the ballot.
Yes. Too late. Okay. Right.
All right, well, it's up to the council to give direction to staff as to whether or not you want an ordinance to be drafted related to this. And if that's the case, whether you're to direct it with the numbers that were provided, the recommendation.
But I think you know where I stand.
Any other words that you would like to state, Councilmember Romanello?
Only that I understand everybody's point and both sides of it. And really, I, to be honest with you, probably wouldn't even take mine. It's really not about me. I just think looking into the future that if any, well, this is just me, but running for Monument Council with $500 a month as an incentive is not an incentive. I mean, again, I like Steve or anybody else, I do it because I love the town and it's what I want to do. I just think that it is the right thing to do long range for people that do give their time just as a little thank you. It should never be some like large commensurate salary or being added to staff benefits or anything beyond just a little thank you that just makes you feel like your time is being validated for mostly the extra stuff that we do that goes unseen. And so again, I see both sides, and there you go.
Or here's a suggestion then, because this council is going to mostly remain as is for the next 2 years. I mean, it could go on a ballot in 2 years.
Shelf it is, I mean, Jim, I understand what you're saying, about the thank you and all, but the thank you that I appreciate the most is when I have a resident come up and just say, thanks for the time that you're giving up and thanks for what you're doing. And the changes that have been made, although they're slow to progress. And that's the reward. That's the reward itself, or staff, the appreciation from staff. So if anything, what I'd recommend doing is shelving this, and then when we get towards closer to next one, I know that you can do an ordinance, but I still prefer the residents to make the call and vote, vice the council doing that. So put it on the ballot next year, the year after, and then go from there. I just think it's bad time right now, again, because of the financial crunch that we're in. We're making a decision just before an election that might, have people not decide to even circle in a box, so to speak, because they don't like that, because they haven't had their voice wasn't heard or didn't have a chance to say anything. So my recommendation would be to shelf this and bring it up in the ballot measure in 2026.
And I will bring up the other side of that. First of all, this isn't a lot of money. So to say that it's going to actually have some kind of impact on Jackson Creek Parkway or renewable water, I think is a misnomer. That's one. Two, if every expenditure should go to the voters, then we become defunct. Our actions and activities and our all of the study and opinions and decisions that we make are no longer valued.
Well, I never said that everything needs to go to the voters is when we're talking about budget matters. But for this, to me, I'm just gonna say it. To me, it doesn't pass the sniff test. It sounds and smells selfish when I'm looking at whether we look at the supplemental projects that could be passed with the amount of money or aided. Anything aided on the supplemental project or the project itself during this time when we have this budget crunch, when we're trying to decide things. I think there's a path forward for Jackson Creek, and that's going into our investments to pay for. But we still don't know the total cost. But all these little things start to add up. And when you add something to the budget, you're taking away from other things that could potentially be taken care of. And for me personally, my priority is for the staff and the departments to be funded along with additional police and salaries. That's where I think our focus should be, not on us, because we volunteered to do this. This is our passion. This is what we love to do. I'm used to volunteering. I served in the military. I volunteered to join. I wasn't forced. And at any point in time, if I ever got disgusted, I could step away from this. I can resign, but I don't want to because I do enjoy living here. I am a piece of this town, this community, and I like to give that time by serving.
Okay, and you serve in the military and you're compensated for that.
No,
This is a recognition.
I wouldn't say I'm compensated. I was paid in the military. I'm not going to say that I was compensated from the military because I'm not even compensated in the job I'm doing now at the amount of hours that I'm spending down there. And I'm not. And in the military, you don't get compensated for all the volume of time. You don't get compensated for the separation loss and the amount of hours that you serve as well.
And thank you because that really supports the argument here too. It's a recognition of the value of the time that's being spent. That's all.
I will say that it's $2.88 an hour for a council member.
Oh, golly, gee whiz.
Based on the numbers. Mayor gets $5 an hour. And I didn't bother calculating the mayor pro tem because he's given it up anyway, but yeah, 288 times 40 times 52 is what the number is. And I mean, I don't disagree with the importance of making sure everything is contributed to staff and what they need, project salaries, et cetera.
But that's why we do a budget and that's why we have the budget discussions and you're never going to get everything ever.
But you're also adding with this, you're adding to the budget, Vice, just taking this off the table for the next couple of years, letting the residents vote, and we focus on what staff has come to us and say, these are our needs. This is what we want. We've already done one balance check, and then we've moved things to the supplemental project.
And this is a wish list. And that's part of what happens.
Their wish list is their needs of doing their job or helping to enhance doing their job. And I take that, I think that that's important.
Yes, and you're giving support to my argument as well. Thank you.
All right. So what's the council want to do? I got your point that you want to table this and let the voters vote on it.
I'm good with that as well as a ballot measure in 2 years.
Are you in the same boat? Okay, so it does not look like we have agreement to have an ordinance, so there is no direction to staff. So we will move on to public comments for not on the agenda. Individuals attending in person may raise their hand to indicate their desire to comment. Individuals attending via Teams may raise their hand digitally to comment via connected devices. Please lower your hand when finished with comments. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Are there anybody here who would like to make a public comment?
Wow.
Did you bring cookies? All right, well, you can comment anyway. Make sure we set the clock though and be very strict on the 3 minutes.
Bring the part-time person up here.
Can't do that.
Nope.
I let you do it. I have to let everybody do it. Anybody online will,
There are no hands raised, Mayor.
okay? Are you sure the lesbians don't have something to say?
Mm. That's what I'm surprised at.
Wait. Okay, no, is there anybody who's got a future item that they want on the agenda?
Again, I asked for, yes, I do. Asking for, you know, if we go into an executive session and discussing the loop and the NDS, looking at the, what it's gonna cost the town, upfront cost, and then long-term, what it's gonna cost for the residents. And wrap that into a budget kind of deep dive where we start breaking things down because that train is moving down the tracks. We only have a couple more meetings left before we have to decide on the budget. And although as much as I like the budget briefs that we're getting, I think we really need to start tearing into it to make some decisions. And I think that needs to be put on the agenda first and foremost, because we only have so many left before. I think we have till December, the first week of December.
And I'd like to see some of their other alternatives that have not yet been explored.
What other alternatives?
Some other renewable water alternatives.
Oh. I
I thought,
don't know that we would get more than what we've already,
yeah, then what we already
we've already
received.
received, but I believe,
Not necessarily.
okay. FYI on renewable water, there still needs to be a delivery mechanism to get it here.
Check.
So we could look at lots of renewable water. We still have to find a way to truck it in.
Check.
Ms. Vandenhoek, did you have something that you want to add to? I thought we discussed there is an executive session coming up to discuss the loop, is there not? Or maybe not the loop, or
Not the loop. No, we've already had that
Okay.
executive session. We have invited Mr. McGrady from Triview to come and present, and we're hoping for October 7th, but we've not confirmed that yet.
you need more than that? If Mr. McGrady shows up to,
No, I think if he shows up and we get that brief, I mean, I think in the email is also already the information that has. No, she sent it out to everyone.
I forwarded an email
Yeah.
this evening during
It's
council
in there.
meeting.
But if we look at those, I think we need to look at both of those sets of numbers and see how that affects the budget.
okay,
And then, you know, put those kind of numbers into the budget itself so we can look at the two options that way. Or discuss it so we can have a better understanding of, and then from there, I think we can start to peel back the onion and figure out what's gonna be funded, what isn't.
well, at some point, the items that we received in executive session, which had numbers attached to it, they have to show up in a budget presentation as a or B, right? So A is loop, B is NDS. It has to be able to be published. We cannot, well, they could be depending on, actually, it could be really vastly different. But the point is that we can't make this decision hiding it from the public.
Yeah.
So.
And we
the-
should probably make it a budget,
But the, you know,
put it to the voters.
the numbers that were given by the loop were similar to the ones that received last year, and they also been published in the OCN as well.
Yeah, but we just have executive session information and we need to get that cleared
Yeah.
from the attorneys for the loop that we can now put that, give it to finance, let them put it into the budget model
Mhm.
so that we can see what those expenditures would be. Because those could clearly bump other projects.
Oh,
So
well,
we need to see them.
especially once you figure out the upfront costs. Yeah,
Right.
I understand. But I'd also like to know the costs are for the residents on that,
So
on both
I would,
projects.
I would say that staff needs to get with the loop authority folks and get clearance that it could be discussed in public. Otherwise, we can't make a decision on it this year and that will be problematic.
The other piece is with the convey, treat and deliver agreement, presumably. My assumption is that it'll be similar to what Triview negotiated. So that will also, the increases that CSU is planning on would probably need to be factored in for both entities. So that those increases this year and then the next 2 or 3 years following would probably have to be factored in as well.
Can we have that as a discussion item for next meeting? Whether Mr. McGrady shows up or not. And give us feedback on what the attorneys for the loop say as to disclosing those numbers. We good with that, Ken? Okay,
Yeah, sounds good.
all right. Any other future agenda item authorizations? All right,
I have one potentially. I had sent an email talking about trying to build the 2025 schedule, and we were suggesting having some study sessions. And I heard back from a few people, so I didn't know if council wanted to make a decision on that tonight or not.
I am not inclined to have another Monday being used. How much football do you expect me to miss? No, I'm just kidding.
No, you're not.
No, I am. I would have watched tonight's game anyway. I think 2 Mondays for me are enough. I don't mind. I know some people don't like the extra workshop hour. But if it's given another Monday that gets taken up doing this versus an hour before the meeting or even within the meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Mayor. I also made a comment for everyone to see that, I mean, I think we're getting to a point where there's not as much on the agenda items because we're almost fully built out all the projects and stuff. So I think that this can be added into the normal session.
I think you're wrong about the build out.
Yeah, we're not. There's a lot coming.
I'm just as compared to what we've gone through.
We just got out of a moratorium.
What kind of topics are we looking at in just broad brush? What do we think?
So they could range, budget is a good example.
Okay.
Where we could do those deeper dives into some of these. We could have the priority conversations with the director's team and with the town council. It could be, some of the issues that have been coming up. We could look at those in a study session. No decisions could be made, but we could answer a lot of your questions. We could make sure we have the staff there. If that topic was, we would have a lot more information for you. That would be outside of a council meeting. So they could go, longer than an hour if longer than an hour was needed. What happens when we have them before council meetings is we have a hard stop.
Yeah.
So it's just a suggestion. I wanted kind of feedback on that.
Okay.
Well, I responded and I told you I'd make it work no matter what, because I think it's important, but other people have other issues and I appreciate that, but I'm available.
Do you have any clue of an answer based on that?
I'll send you an email with my response.
I mean, yeah, I mean, the bottom line is I'm okay with the study sessions ahead of time as long as I know ahead of time so I can work magic in my schedule.
That's why we're suggesting the second Monday could be used for them. However, we could cancel them.
Yeah, I prefer not to tie up a whole nother Monday. I'd rather have a study session before the normal meetings. And that way the battle rhythm is kept for staff, you know, where they know it's the first and third Monday and it's not adding another day to their.
I think she's saying they prefer that, right? Is that what I heard?
Staff sees benefit to having study sessions as an ability to have a deeper conversation with council. And especially sometimes in budget or other, we've seen that we've just not had enough time to talk through an entire issue. So this is a suggestion from some staff. I'm not sure where staff sits on this. So, you know, I haven't asked all of them yet, but it's an idea. We
And
could.
it's not mandatory. It's just
No,
as
it-
needed.
Right. It would be like if we needed public works, so maybe we just need Tom, or maybe we'd need to talk about water. Again, we would just need Tom, or maybe it's a finance something, you know, so we wouldn't maybe need everybody at all times. But it just gives us an option to build into the calendar so that we're not shuffling dates around all over the place.
Okay. That's fair. Okay.
Okay, so if you've not responded, please respond. I will respond also. Any other future agenda item authorizations? All right, council comments? Anybody with council comments? I've got one.
I have two.
Yeah, I have one too.
All right, I'll wait. Go ahead.
Okay. First of all, I want to say thank you and acknowledge and just be very public about the change here at Town Hall from staff in attitude, in just the way that I feel when I walk in. It's very uplifting, and I want to say thank you. Appreciate it very much. These are kind of the little things that mean a lot and make a big difference. So I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. And the second thing is, and Miss Hayes, she invited me to a meeting of the, I know this is going to sound odd, but the Homemakers Group that apparently has been operating for 112 years. And they have a ton of historical information that, to me, I don't know if they've shared it with Parma Lake. That I kind of got that impression, Terry. Somehow there's got to be a way to collect this and not let it fall in cracks. And you know, I think much the same way as the whole cemetery thing happened. Maybe there's a way, and I'm just throwing it out there at this point in time. Maybe there's a way to get them together. It's a very small group of historical women. Yes. Well, you know, how else do we say it? I'm trying to be PC.
But wait, what kind of stuff do they have? Like books, journals? What is it?
Newspaper articles, notes.
Oh.
Oh yeah, I'm talking and personal photographs, and I mean it's just bits and pieces and snippets here and snippets there. But some of this stuff is really good stuff. So I'm just, if there's a way to kind of, you know, put together something to collect the information and put it into some form of, you know, some cogent.
Are you talking like the cemetery book?
Yes.
The store?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, I can, if you want, I can go talk to the UCCS library, because I'm taking a master's course there, because, you know, I'm bored.
Because you're bored?
Yeah, it's bad to say. Anyway, but I can talk to the UCCS librarian and see if,
How to go about it?
yeah,
Okay, that
Yeah,
would be great.
okay.
Thanks.
yeah, no problem.
And then I'll feed back to them, since I guess I'm their new designee, because since I don't have anything else to do.
So you're bored also?
Yeah, right. Okay, that's all.
Okay. Was that the only one comment?
That's it. No,
Okay.
I have two.
Oh,
That was it. Those were the two.
okay.
Oh, you're letting me go? Okay.
Yeah.
So there have been two ongoing basically drainage issues around the Home Place Ranch area. And one of them is Sally Court, which has been ongoing and has undeveloped, well, it's developed property, but it's finished lots that haven't been built on, and I think they've been sold, and I'm not sure exactly what's all going on over there, but it's been an ongoing flooding issue up there. And I drove up there today and it seemed like there was a lot of work done. I saw new silt fences. I saw the roads all cleaned up. I don't know who took care of that. If it was you, Dan, I appreciate it. Because that area has been a giant mess. There's also another one off of Sabre Court, which I also forwarded to you, but I did not go and look at that. So I'm assuming that there's some type of progress being made there. That one is directly off Home Place Ranch. Do you know about that one with Mr. Thomas? Is he getting his needs met? Do you know? Do you know anything about that? Okay. All right. Well, maybe Madeline, you know something about that one? Is that one ongoing?
It's something that we had discussions about today, and we're looking into a list of things that we need to address with the builder.
Okay, I appreciate that. The Sally Court one seemed like it might be fairly well mitigated by now, but we'll see when the next storm hits, I guess.
Just two things related to that. The gentleman I walked out with, we're here to talk to you about that.
Yeah, why'd they leave? I
They
wanted,
thought you were done, so I'm sorry. They were here actually to talk to you about that.
That was very kind.
They are they're from Home Place Ranch. They're the builders. If they're aware, made more aware of these things, they will address it right away. When I call them, they're always responsive. What I would ask of any resident or yourselves is to use the system that we have in place on our website. If you just go in there and say there's a problem at this location, we can track it. We can go find it. We can show you that we did it. That would help us out immensely for reporting purposes later too. But the builders, they were there, and there might be someone else online too from another home builder that I called and asked to be present tonight just in case this came up. And I'm sorry they took off before they got to talk about it.
Well, thank you for the Sally Court follow through on that.
Tom Martinez helped me out a ton on that, and so did Jeremiah. So it's a team effort. We figure out who's the best person to make the call, and as I said, they're for the most part they're responsive.
Thank you.
so I want to piggyback on that. Homeowners from Sally Court were sitting up front. They must have felt that we were done also. That's unfortunate. I spoke with one of the homeowners over the weekend as I drove through the same neighborhood and came across what I would say that the developer has failed to do what they promised to do at Harness, and I can't make out the street name on my video that I took, but there was a promise by this developer that they were going to seed the property. Because they were essentially abandoning development for the time being, but they had already scraped all the land. And because they scraped all the land on all of these improved lots during the giant rainstorm that we had last year, much of the dirt flowed into the homeowner's property, destroying parts of it. Much vegetation was wiped out in the process. In fact, there are probably 6 to 8 evergreens that are dead now because the developer didn't connect irrigation to them. And much of the dirt swept into what's the term? The ditch behind their house.
Oh, that's No Name Creek back there.
No Name Creek. So, and that is going down, eventually making its way to USAFA, right? Monument Creek. They were supposed to have, according to our previous town manager, they were obligated to provide a bond to get the work done. Let me continue so you can get it all, right? There is many feet, I'm guessing well over 100 feet, probably much more than that, of open ditches with pipe laying in it that's not covered. It's a black pipe, probably 4 to 6 inches. I have no idea what it's used for. I'm not into plumbing. So, but it is what I would consider a danger. The homeowner that was sitting here informed me that children of various ages are riding their bikes through these empty lots, probably jumping dirt mounds and things of that nature, but potentially they could get injured, especially with the fact that there's so many feet of open ditch. I saw one resident, or I don't know if they're a resident, but one vehicle pulled all the way to the eastern back end of the lot and dumped something on the ground, some material that's on the far eastern part of this lot, of this development. So my suggestion is, and I can forward you the videos or you can drive out there. Oh, you already have them.
Yeah.
My suggestion is that at that corner of Harness, and there's a street name, but it's not showing up on the maps. At the builder's expense, every entrance into their undeveloped land, they put Jersey barriers up to prevent vehicle traffic. Since they're not constructing anything, there's not a piece of equipment on this property. As well as perimeter fence the entire development to ensure that nobody gets hurt and turns around and sues the town, as well as the developer, okay? Unless they're about to make application to actually start constructing and they're going to put a trailer up that you would expect to go up for workers. But this area has been abandoned as far as I can tell.
I have nothing to really reply to that, other than I've already spoken to them and I'll continue to work with them to secure the site and get the site cleaned up. I do have several builders that are starting to come in and looking at start purchasing lots. I don't recall if it's in that location. I was going to look today to see. But as I said, they both responded. They both answered the call when I called them, so I'll have to follow up with them again.
And they also have responded to emails, I've seen them, that were initiated by the homeowners that are on Sally Court. The problem is that it's lip service.
Well, I'm not sure I necessarily agree with the homeowner, so I think I need more information about what was promised to them. And unfortunately, based on, there's two sides to the story. The trees that were actually put out in the parkway to provide them screening, it was the builders understand they would be taking care of those trees. It wasn't, they never thought that they were going to be irrigating or watering the trees that were there, and they weren't taken care of and they died.
So their expectation was a homeowner was going to
The
go
homeowner was going to take care of
onto
those.
land that
were
they
there
don't
for that.
own?
I can't tell you if it was rational or not, how the process went. I can just tell you that that's what I had learned from it. But right now we have dead trees out there. Those need to be removed.
Right.
And I've already spoken to the builder about that today. But they have to resolve something with the homeowner. That's certainly not our role. I believe that area is maintained by TriView. So we have to get TriView involved.
It's just my impression, based on previous emails and conversations, that they were going to reseed everything that was not being worked on. And they clearly have not reseeded anything.
Yeah.
And
I'll
if we have
speak to them about that.
if we have a bond, we should spend it and make them put up another bond. And we should keep doing that until they actually do something with the land, either sell it, construct on it. But we need to protect people from getting injured. They do. And we need to keep people out of that area. So no, and there is now something that's out there. I don't know what the
Well,
material
Dan
is.
probably doesn't know about that.
No,
but
I know,
the,
I know. That's why I wanted
but
to inform
yeah,
them of everything.
Our former town manager did say that he was going to have them reseed it all. And that was our understanding. That was going to get reseeded.
I'll follow up with them this week.
But by the same token, I did see a lot of work being done up there, so I do appreciate that.
Yeah, the hay bales and
Well, they cleaned up the street. It was 4 inches of dirt across it and all the silt fences had failed and even down in No Name Creek, it looked like they cleaned that out. So
Thank you.
thanks for taking care of that.
Yep, thank you. Can you keep us posted, please, too?
Sir.
Thank you. All right, that's all the do you have any other comments? Mr. Romanello, are you still with us?
No comments.
Looking for a motion to adjourn.
Said.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You're adjourned.
Aye.